I prepared a title for this talk, and I titled it, I Am Inevitable. Some of you probably know where those words come from. Any Marvel fans here? Marvel fans? MCU? Anybody? None of you MCU fans? Okay, it's fine. I guess I'm alone. Wow. So I based it off what Thanos said when he was busy telling the Avengers and messing up with them. He's telling them, I am inevitable. And much like Thanos, I am inevitable. So, here's why I say I am inevitable. I themed this whole topic, this whole talk around the aspect of change. And I took the year 2022, the first few days of 2022, to reflect upon the year that was, the years that were, from the beginning of the COVID pandemic to now. And I kept asking myself, what have I done in these 2 years? What have I been able to do? And I must say I'm quite pleased with myself. I've done quite a lot. And here's why. So, next slide, I guess. So this is a quote. There is nothing permanent except change. Heraclitus was saying this in the whatever Greek gathering he was saying this. And when I saw this quote, it was like when you go looking for quotes, just random quotes to put on your status because you don't have enough memes. So when you look for quotes, I found this quote and I said, you know what, I'm going to keep this for the talk because this is exactly what period we are in. Have you guys ever stopped to look at Nairobi for a minute and like, have you noticed how quickly the landscape of Nairobi has changed over the last 10 years? I mean, we have a whole expressway now crisscrossing over the place. And that wasn't around 10 years ago. There were trees all over the place and now there are no trees. It's become more of a concrete jungle nowadays. Change is permanent. I think change is ever present. It's happening in our lives. Just a few years ago, I was a high school student. I would be in school right now thinking about, I would be thinking about preps and what to read if that was 2 or 3 years ago. Now I'm standing in front of you giving you a talk. Change is ever present and it's all. So this is what happened to me. The pandemic removed the surety of physical interaction, creating the need for change in how businesses will do business. If you really think about it, we were really knocked, of course, in 2020. Nearly everyone felt it. Businesses. I can relate personally because I was just 19. I was just trying to find out what I was going to do with my life. And I had these 2 small businesses I had started because ever since I got my first phone, I never really had to ask for credit. I never had an allowance. So I used to do small jobs like talk to the shopkeepers, ask them if they could help settle their books for a little cash, go to places, do some menial jobs. There's a time at my family doesn't know that. To get some cash, a little cash for the pocket, a little cash to walk around in town, a little cash for when I had these dates and things like those. The allowance, they call it here. So all that changed in 2020 because shops were closing, no business was around. Everybody, you did not want to meet anyone because you really didn't know if they had the Rona, and everybody was so, restrained. If there's anybody who got introverted traits in 2020, I totally feel you. I am still trying to get out of feeling a bit introverted. So that's what happened. And for businesses, things changed because you couldn't trust that anybody was fine, anybody was healthy, that you couldn't contract corona by somebody sitting next to you. And so things had to change. School, we were out of school, we were out of college for about 3 months because we were busy trying to find out what they were going to do. I was at the point of giving up right at the beginning of 2020 when the Rona came because now there was no money and I did not know what to do. So I sat and asked myself, what am I going to do this 2020? You could probably put the next slide. So for me, I had started a few jobs. I was selling shirts. I was printing shirts I was printing shirts and selling them at the time, and all of a sudden there was no capital for the shirts because I used to get the capital from the little jobs that I was doing, so I could no longer sell shirts. And that business closed, and I did not know what to do. So it really locked me off course, and I had to rethink my entire career. When I was in high school, by the way, when I was in high school, I was really into tech. But you see, as things change and as you grow older, you discover, okay, so maybe this is not exactly where I need to be. So maybe I'll take a change, I'll go veer a bit to the right or a bit to the left. I got into college and I decided to do multimedia and animation. Okay, to some people it's totally away from it, but I guess we still get to use computers, right? And we get to create. So I thought this is just the perfect mix of art and technology, and I should try this. So that's exactly what I decided to do in 2020. I chose a totally new career, and well, I guess this is part of the reason why I'm here. We learned really fast. Colleges and universities implemented a whole curriculum around online education quicker than fast. We adopted Zoom. There's supposed to be an image there. I hope you don't mind. Zoom, I guess, was the champion of 2020, if you really think about it, because Zoom was cheap, Zoom was free, and we could have meetings for 30 minutes without having to charge anything. Skype had the prices. There were other voice calling apps, but Zoom was so accessible, and it was so on there. It was all you had to do was just download the app and set up a meeting, and boom. I mean, Google took time to even set up Google Meet appropriately to match the audience. And so Zoom really made it. And it taught me a lesson. It taught me that I should look for patterns of change. I looked into the history of Zoom, and it's theirs was a story of luck. If you really think about it, they started out, the guy who founded Zoom was on Skype's team, and then he realized that Skype wasn't becoming what he wanted it to become, so he kind of left Skype and started his own thing. And he was centering it about meetings. And 2020 was just his swan song. Everybody else was suffering. His company flourished. And it made me really think. I was like, okay, so is the secret to success really sticking to one thing and running with it, or is it trying what works and waiting for the right time to come? And I kept it as a side note. I thought, okay, fine, we should keep it as a side note. Try something new and then keep at it, and some time will come when it will actually work. The second thing that happened was I noticed that universities and colleges, they really took the time to invest in this change and move with it. And while some universities were pretty quick, they had already brought tabs for online learning. Some weren't prepared. Like the college I was at EduLink, they were really not prepared for this. We were really into in-person learning. And it was the corona thing really took the entire school, of course. So we were like, okay, fine, let's do Microsoft Teams, let's do Google Meet, let's do Google Classroom. They really hadn't figured it out. And it calculated into, it ended up with losses. It ended up with losses with them. Because if you really think about it, if you don't move with change is going to move you eventually. If you don't see change and if you don't anticipate change is going to play you, and it's going to play you real harsh. For me, remember, I was stuck in 2020 and I really did not know what to do. But looking back, I think 2020 was one of my most productive years on record. Let me ask you a question. And the reason why I ask people what they did that 2020 is something I had Jay Shapiro saying. It's like, we really should be able to take advantage of the situations. Yeah, 2020 was a whole situation in itself. 2020 is free to become a meme, but if we took advantage of those situations, we probably might be the next change makers. Because if you think about it, we are coming out of an era. 2020 was the beginning of an era, and we're really quickly coming out of it. People are becoming more comfortable not wearing masks anymore. We're all vaccinated, So we're moving out of COVID. We're moving out of that period. And if you really think about it, 2020 was a period where anything could have been possible. Anything could have been possible. You'd have started something and it would have really blown up in 2020. You would have, look at Kabi Lame, for example, TikTok, as you know, Kabi is. He blew up in 2020. He didn't have to say a word, and he blew up in 2020. I mean, things really did happen in 2020. So for me, what happened was, it was necessary. I had to move with the times. I really had to. Otherwise, I would have been, job hunting, I guess. Job hunting. So for me, Shauku Games was what I came up with. So remember when I told you guys I was doing multimedia and animation? In the process of multimedia and animation, I remembered I had dreams. In 2016, I saw the rise of game development and gaming in Kenya, and there was this guy, do I really remember his name? This guy, he made a Kenyan game, Nairobi X. It's a very interesting game where Nairobi was attacked by aliens, typical game stuff. And he made this game and it really blew up, and it got him everywhere. And I was so inspired by what he did back in 2016 that I thought, I should do something about it. But then all I had at the time was my ability to write scripts. So I thought, I should start writing scripts, make a company that writes scripts for game development. And Telemage Interactive was born. We recently changed the name to Shauku Games. So between 2016 and 2019, we didn't really have any business. We had nothing selling. We had no people interested. The guy I started this thing with left, so I was left alone. And I thought I should scrap it because I didn't see a future in it at that time. And then 2020 came. And I had had enough of selling scripts to game developers who did not really transform these scripts into actual games that we could see and play. And so I thought, why don't I do it myself? Why don't I make games myself? And if you really think about it, I didn't have quite an experience in game development. I knew nothing about game development in 2020. So it was like, okay, so how do I even begin? I remember I had an issue with the IT manager of our school because instead of spending the time to learn, to use YouTube to learn what we were learning in school, since the passion came for it, I veered off course and started spending way too much time on YouTube, learning game development, looking at tutorials, and it surprised me how easy it was. It surprised me how easy it was to make games, to start from scratch, to place one object here and place one object here and tell it to do this and it would do it. And I was like, wow, okay, so you can do that. And I learned a new skill in 2020. I think that's goals for me. That I took a year and I just learned something completely new. And I did not know what I would do with it until somebody else challenged me to do it. So there's this other guy who was known as Ray. His name is Ray. He's in the game dev community. He told me, you know what, you know nothing. This guy had been doing game development, so clearly when he said, I know nothing, he was right. But then I was like, you know what, I just learned this thing, and there's this kid, I needed to prove him wrong. This feeling, I needed to prove this guy wrong. So I made a game in 6 months. And I had no idea what I was doing from the beginning of the year. All of a sudden I'm speaking in jargon that I would not have understood a year prior. And so I moved with the times. And you remember what I was telling you about Zoom and how it seemed like luck to them? That's what happened to me. Because with Shauku Games, we started getting business as soon as I made my first game. Guys were like, oh, so you can make games. Why don't you make me a game about this? Make game about that. A game about washing hands. A game about corona. A game about, songwriting. A game about environment. And all of a sudden I had business. In 2019, if I looked at Shauku Games, I would have probably just thrown it away. For me, this is a bunch of pieces of paper and people hadn't really bought it. But now it became a business. So it's wow. So if there's anything I tell you guys, first of all, watch the change. Watch the changes. Like Zoom, create an idea, put it aside. Any little thing that comes into your mind, you have a notes app on your phone, just write it down and put it on the side. You never really know when the time comes when it will be the change that is necessary. You never really know. The second thing is predicting change. Looking at how things are. I've noticed a majority of the youth don't watch news nowadays. And I understand. It's all doom and gloom. Mara, somebody has died here. Mara, somebody's committed suicide there. And then there's a regular dose of politics. And I mean, these leaders, they always see the same things. I totally get it. But there is always something interesting to learn. For example, if you ask business people, if you ask Ben, he'll tell you they're trying to maximize as much as they can before the general election. And that's because we're in a certain season. Exactly, we're in a certain season. We are in that season. And businesses have become particularly good at predicting changes, because for them they have no choice but to. For their businesses to stay afloat, they've had no choice but to predict change. So personally, I'd ask you as an individual, how good are you at predicting change? Do you really even consider the changes that happen around you? Like I just asked you, did you really take the time to notice the changes in the landscape of Nairobi over the last 10 years? Those questions really help. There was a place I used to go buy CDs back when you used to buy CDs for movies. Man, 10 years is crazy. The changes that have happened this decade is crazy. Used to buy CDs, now we have them on flash and you can buy them, you can watch them online. We don't even need to go to those movie guys anymore. Movie guys now are suffering because there is competition they did not predict. If you really think about this competition they did not predict. At this point, I don't think the slides are necessary. Movie guys at this point are lost at what to do, because now all I have to do is go type hdmovies.com and I have all the movies I want to watch, including a camera copy of No Way Home. Wow, it's crazy. I don't have to go to a movie guy and pay 30 bob anymore for a CD to go put, and laptops no longer have CD drives anymore. Things have changed in 10 years, and if you cannot predict change, you go out. Who remembers Kodak? You remember Kodak? Do you think Kodak is still in business? They're still in business. What are they doing? Do you know?
Can't remember. Something else.
Not film. But we used to know Kodak as those guys. When it comes to film, we knew Kodak. I also did a bit of research. I was curious. I was just curious to find out what happened to Kodak. And funny thing, the thing that took Kodak out was not registering change. People were moving to digital cameras. People wanted to have their shots ready, They didn't want to have to wait for some sonobari somewhere to transform the film into pictures. People were not doing frames anymore. Phones had cameras. I remember when I was 5, my dad took me out to Uhuru Park, and these were when Sony Ericssons were a thing. And he took me out to Uhuru Park and he took this photo. And 3 days later, on his phone, and 3 days later he had a film. I asked him, how did you get it on film? Because I was for that I thought, and in my childish mind, you needed Mr. Barry, some guy who had actually had rolls of film. And he told me, all you have to do is USB to the comp. And you have a physical copy you can actually print out. And unfortunately for Kodak, they didn't move with the times. They didn't change. They were comfortable. They were the monopoly when it came to cameras, and unfortunately they relaxed. And well, we don't know where they are really anymore. Skype. Who remembers Skype? Do you guys still use Skype? Guys, don't use Skype. Funny thing, Skype was, when it came out, it was ahead of its time. It was doing what Zoom is doing, if you think about it. It was doing what Zoom was doing. But here we are. You don't really remember Skype for much. We use Zoom instead. We use Google Meet instead. 10 years ago, Android wasn't a thing, and now it's a major operating system. It's a thing we use on most of our phones nowadays. 10 years ago, the speeds used to be GPRS. Man, we used to download a picture in like half a day or something, and softwares used to take like 2 or 3 days to download, let alone install. Now things are so fast. I mean, you have an app, you need an app, you have it. You don't even have to think about it. You can download an app, put it in your phone, put it in your pocket, and like by the time you're getting there, you have it. You know. In 10 years, things have changed so much, and because of the changes of 2020, things are about to change yet again. So the question I have for you guys is, 1, did you predict the change? Did you see 2020 coming in terms of technology, in terms of your business and where it could scale to? Number 2, do you think you have the change that is needed for the future? Because the future is now. We need that change now. If there is a way we can be able to interact without having the stress of Corona, we need it now. If there's anything for the next 10 years, we need it now. If you want to be a monopoly in the next 10 years, that change better come now. And we better be ready for the changes that are going to happen, because a lot of things are going to change. Sandy started just the other day. You know, these guys started doing deliveries just the other day. And now they're big. They're big, man. The CEO is walking around like a big boy. You know, want to chill with the big boys? That kind of guy. I mean, you know, just the other day. And just the other day, I was a student. I didn't really have a lot thinking. I didn't really have to think about the future that much. But now, I do. So, as I end this talk, okay, actually, I won't even end it just yet. There was something we talked about yesterday. I almost forgot. For most of us as youth, we have problems turning our ideas into businesses. And oftentimes the difference between the idea we have, this amazing, ambitious idea we have, and the business we are eventually going to create is quite simple. I think that the difference is just a simple process. My mom, when I was young, my mom used to always encourage me to write things down. I am also a singer and a songwriter, by the way. I'm just going to put that out there. I sing. So back when I was young, when I was just discovering how to songwrite, I really didn't know I needed to songwrite the song, and unfortunately, with my ADHD mind, it would just be off my mind in like 3 seconds. I wouldn't even remember the tune. So my mom used to tell me, write it down. The tune might be lost, but you have the words. And that's the same way I still songwrite to this day. And I started applying it to every other facet of my life. I see a problem there. If you really think about it, businesses are problem solvers. And in this decade, now more than ever, problem solvers. For those who catch up with business news, recently there was this verdict about Elizabeth Holmes and the Theranos thing. She was proposing a problem. She was a scam, yes, but she was proposing a problem. And she got funding like crazy, funding that's out of our minds, like out of our dreams. Funding that we wish we all had, because she proposed a problem. And I am sure all of you, every day, everywhere you go, you see problems that could be solved. You see an easier way of doing things. You see a problem, like, you see something that you could change. And the problem is, I understand for us youth is like, we have a problem we could change, but how many people are willing to accept that change? I get that. We all have differing opinions. Gen Z is Gen Z is completely eggshells. You will say something and a whole group of people will up and react. But I guess I'll say what Mark Zuckerberg said. Just start. Just start. Write it down. Like my mother, just write it down. Put it down on paper. You think the queues for vaccination are taking too long? Do you think there's a better way you could do it? Write it down. Write it down. Conceptualize it. In fact, if anything, guys, I'm in the business of conceptualization. That's basically, other than Shauku Games, that's what I do. I look at a problem, I conceptualize a way to solve it, and then I use my graphics design skills to make that image come to life. Investors love that stuff. Trust me, they dig that stuff. If you can show them that this thing is gonna work, if they can see it with their own eyes and get to share the vision with you, trust me, you're gonna get the funding. You're gonna get the funding, you're gonna become a business. Shauku was registered late this year. No, late last year, sorry. I learned a new skill. I had an idea that I had way back then that I really didn't know whether I could transform into a business, and now it's registered. The government now knows I am a CEO of a company. I'm 21. I mean, you walk around, now I can walk and say I'm part of the big boys, And it's not just the title for me. It's like, wow, the level, how quickly things changed. And it was just at an opportune time. I was just about to be through with college. So job tarmacking and job seeking is out of my mind now. I can't go back. Once you start a business, you can't go back. So for you guys, I'll challenge you and ask you, today, not any other day, not from the beginning of January, just today, I am sure you have seen something. Jams are taking too long. Well, your phone's not working properly. Something is not working. There's always something not working right. And I am sure somewhere in your minds you have a solution. Have you written it down? Do you have a place you've written it down? If you have not, then, well, before the day ends and before you forget it, write it down. Before you get into TikTok and TikTok absorbs your mind for 60 seconds, write it down. Before you forget it, write it down. If you have anything at all. And the change might not come now. The blowing up might not come now. Well, I'm far from where I need to be. The blowing up might not come now, but it'll come. In 2017, when my partner left, when it was still Terra Image Interactive, I really lost hope. Well, it's not working. It's not making us any profit. It's not doing anything for us. And none of these guys were transforming these things into games. So it's a losing game. And funny enough, there are days, even in active business, when it's like that. Last month was a very busy month for many, many companies, and our company had nil. And it's easy to feel, but there are days like those. But the thing is, if you stick around, consistency, you have it. It's there. You started. Its time will come. So, thank you for listening. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions concerning starting stuff, come to me. I am good at conceptualization, as I said. I'll help you see it. Yeah, thank you.